another episode of What Remains, a fan podcast where we dive into the collection of the Fredericksburg Area Museum. I'm Kylie.
And I'm Clarissa.
And we'll explore the history and impact of the objects that were left behind and sometimes the things that aren't. So let's see what remains.
What do you have for us today, Kylie?
Clarissa, I am giddy. Today we're going to talk about something near and dear to my heart, gas lamps.
Oh no.
Before you all are like, what is wrong with you? Hear me out. Okay, when you bring an object into the collection and you see it through the acquisition process, it's super easy to get attached to it. I love all my precious pieces, but there are some that have a special place in my heart because of all the work that goes into caring for it and researching it so it can be a part of the collection. It's a labor of love, really. And I know this does not make me sound any less crazy, but whatever. This is what you get when you give a collections person a microphone. So here we go. I think this episode is going to be fun. So we really have two objects we're talking about, but let me introduce you to the first. I have with me this funky looking piece of metal. It's almost about 2 feet long and it's shaped like an L with a curl at the top. We'll definitely post a picture. It's really hard to imagine otherwise. This is a lamplighter step. It was carried around by the men tasked with lighting and extinguishing the street lamps each night. And lamplighters were actually elected positions in the city. It was an important job and required someone reliable to do the task. So how this step would work? It would work by hooking around the base of the lamppost. So this rounded part hooks around, and then you have this flat step. And so you'd be able to step up, reach the pilot light, get that ignited, and boom, the lamp is lit. It's simple, effective, and it's easy to carry. There's not really much to it. But why is this significant? Well, it's significant because it represents this bygone era of lighting. Gas lamps used for streetlights are essentially a novelty now. You'll see them in historic towns, more to create ambiance than anything. You've seen them, Clarissa.
Or to distinguish different neighborhoods, like thinking of Churchill and Richmond.
Right, exactly. And when it comes to gas lamps, they're not as bright. It's more work to maintain. It's a little harder to automate than an electric bulb, and so on. But they are pretty cool when you see them, though.
Oh, absolutely.
So far, we're kind of off to a depressing and unassuming start, but I assure you, this, my friends, is a tale of lost light, one woman's quest to reignite the past, and the city's dedication to preservation. And there's a scarecrow and a solar eclipse involved, so it's a whole thing.
You make our job sound so crazy sometimes, but I'm here for it. Ready for the story?
They're a little crazy. Let's get into this. We're jumping back to June of 1868. It's a Saturday night and the streets are quieting down after a bustling day in the city. The sun is going down and you look up and you see all these new lamps have been installed along the main roads. That's nice, you think? Or you scoff, who knows? People have opinions, I wasn't there. Anyway, you see a nicely dressed man walking down the street carrying a collection of tools, maybe a step, a pole, perhaps a ladder, and he stops at each lamp, climbs up, ignites the gas, and steps down. The light illuminates brighter than you've ever seen in the streets before, and the flame stays consistently lit. What a miracle.
So cool.
What you've just witnessed are the streets being lit for the first time by gas in Fredericksburg's history.
Wow.
And before this, the streets would have been lit using oil lamps, lanterns, or candles. If you listened last week, you know how candle power works. Yes, she's rolling her eyes at me. Candle power is back. Bet you didn't think you'd ever hear about that again.
A girl can only hope.
Where were we? Yes, okay. Anyway, street lighting was kind of terrible prior to these gas lamps. There was really ever enough light that you could see enough not to trip over the curb and fall into the street. It wasn't great. So this was a huge improvement. And would you believe me that if I told you there was always a bunch of drama surrounding lighting and the street lamps?
I mean, people get really tied to things, so I'm gonna say no, but I can't wait to hear the drama.
Oh, there is drama. So there was this constant battle that was going on between trying to save a couple bucks and having well-lit streets. Lighting was expensive, and if gas could be reserved, then it was done. So there was this, actually it's a pretty cool rule, where if there were to be a full moon that night, then they wouldn't light the lamps, which makes sense. It's bright enough, why waste that precious resource? And of course save some money. But there's this little thing that's called weather that tends to happen.
Yeah.
And in 1897, this huge storm came through on one of these anticipated moonlit nights. So the lamps were not lit. The Methodist church services ended up letting out in the evening, and people were so frustrated with their inability to steer clear of mud puddles that they wrote about it in the paper. And I quote, "The citizens generally think that the price paid for street lighting entitles them to a plentiful supply at all times. They know they have a faithful and efficient lamplighter, but a poor opinion of Hicks' forecast." Hicks was their weatherman. Poor guy.
Poor guy.
And gas would go on to be the lighting method of choice for only about a decade or so, believe it or not, before we moved on to electric lights. And by the late 1880s, new electric companies and plants were popping up everywhere, especially right around the river here. And this old way of doing things was slowly being phased out. I actually have a fun little anecdote from 1914. On the night of October 20th, a horse was tied to a lamppost out front of City Hall while his person assumedly went in to do some kind of business. And at some point, the horse was startled, took off, pulling down the post and smashing it onto the ground.
Well, with that here, that's our City Hall. That's outside our building, right?
Yeah. And the lamppost was never replaced because at that point, as I said, they were being phased out. It wasn't used very often. So there goes another lamp. And just in case anyone is wondering, because I know you all are, the horse was not charged for this act of vandalism.
Well, it's not his fault. Blame the owner.
Yeah, that's true. Why don't use the post, don't use the lamppost. But during this period, electric lighting wasn't actually any much better than gas. Weather was still knocking out the power with every heavy storm, and people were frankly annoyed. There are all sorts of these professional and non-professional opinions documented in the papers of which one is better, what is the lesser of two evils, and a lot of people just saying, do whatever it takes to light up the streets. I don't care if it's gas or electric or whatever. You know, this is what we're paying for. We want the streets lit. And by the middle of the 20th century, the gas lamps had pretty much all disappeared. We moved on and we were overall happy with how this whole electric thing worked out. And these pieces of history were lost to time. And I can't say it's sad because that's just how it works. And we can only hope that when we come back around to these things and we're looking into it, that there is evidence that remains, which leads me to my next story. So to recap, we know there was light on the streets before electricity, and we had our little lamplighter step to show for it. That's all we had. And this was until the solar eclipse of last year. So on that day, the FAM staff, we took our little paper glasses and we all went outside. And
Like everybody did.
Yeah, of course. And while everyone was taking turns looking at the sun, I was looking at things. That's just what I do. I can't explain it anywhere else. I was just looking at stuff.
That's what collection people do. We look around and we're like, oh wait, that has to have a story.
Exactly, thank you. Well, when I was looking up, I noticed that this lamp out front of the museum is unlike any other on the street. I even paced up and down the 900 block of Princess Anne to see what was going on. It's a gas lamp.
What?
Yes, so that sent me down a research rabbit hole. Why is it here? How old is it? Is it real? There's clearly a story here that this one lamp is left all by its lonesome. And it started with looking at pictures. So if you take pictures from the 2000s, okay, there's the lamp. Go back 1980s, the lamp's there. 1960s, there's two lamps. So I decided to go back as far as I could with pictures of the building, and in the early 1900s, there's two lamps, okay? Well, in 1927, one of the most famous pictures of City Hall, taken by Francis Benjamin Johnston, shows that there are no lamps.
Aren't we glad she documented the city?
Oh, Frances, she is amazing. Thank you. Ugh, don't even get me started. And so after doing a bunch more digging and using these photographs to kind of pinpoint the decade in which the lamps disappeared and reappeared, we found this. So it turns out that in 1959, Fredericksburg installed 2 gas lamps at City Hall. They were to be burned constantly to give the street that historic effect that we talked about, City Manager Freeman Funk had wrote to Baltimore's mayor at the time and requested some of these lamps. And he was put in contact with an antique dealer who found two roughly 1840s lamps.
Wow, that's so cool.
So we can date them now.
Right.
And they're almost 4 feet high on their own. These things are massive. And they sit on top of this 8-foot cast iron pole. That is the one you see right out front now. And the natural gas service company, they bought the lamps for the city, and as long as the city paid for the gas, they agreed to keep them lit. And there's even this fantastic picture in the newspaper of it being held by someone, and it is so cool. It is huge. Anyway, like I said, that lamp is still there. So what's the next step? Well, immediately I started bothering the city to learn all about these lamps. We actually don't know what happened to the other one. Most likely someone hit it or something, or it got moved down to City Hall.
Or something happened during a storm. Seems they like to impact lights.
Yes, I don't think it was a horse accident this time, though.
With Fredericksburg, you never know.
That is true. And after talking with the city, we all agreed that we have to make sure that this lamp gets preserved in some way. And so they have been so patient with me and my weird questions. So shout out to them.
Oh, for sure.
And the lamp, it's not hooked up, and the glass globe that kind of encompasses the pilot light is missing, but everything else is still there. And it's a really cool looking piece, and we were able to pinpoint the maker and model that can easily be used for restoration. And if any of you remember last year's scarecrow contest, the one the whole city puts on, our scarecrow was a lamplighter. His name was Derek the Derelict Lamplighter. And this actually comes from a true story. It's from a newspaper article I found where it basically said, hey, you need to get your lamplighter under control. He's lighting the lamps early and extinguishing them late. He's wasting money, and he's frankly bad at his job. They described him as derelict in his duties.
And he was somebody who was voted or appointed?
Yeah, he was elected. And so we had fun with that, and he ended up winning one of the prizes. So kind of reeling this back in, the moral of the story is sometimes we get lucky and something does remain where we thought it was gone. And not only does this lamp have this whole historical significance about lighting the streets for the first time, but it's also the nod to the work that was done in the 1950s and 60s by the city to preserve the history of the area that we've come to cherish today.
That's what I thought was really interesting while you were talking, Kylie, is it shows just the generations of people in Fredericksburg who love and appreciate history and the work that they do from the biggest to the littlest to help us preserve our historic landscape.
Oh yeah, and it doesn't even have to be a huge building. Like you said, it's the small things too that when they're all put together, they tell this amazing story. And I know stories and objects like these can seem so mundane, but there's always so much beneath the surface, and it shows progress. It's topical of the time. We've seen the drama, and it's part of why the lamps are where they are, and it's important that we don't forget. And one of my favorite things is the lamplighter step was donated by one Mr. Freeman Funk. So we have gone full circle with the lamps. And it's a little bit of a shorter episode today, but I did just want to draw light to this. So thank you all for listening and honestly letting me get this one out of my system. It was only a matter of time. Anyone who knows me knows how much I love to talk about this lamp.
And if you come to visit the museum, you can definitely see Kylie's favorite artifact sitting right outside.
Yes, and it's super cool, so go enjoy it. And I'm not going to give away any spoilers, but we have a super exciting episode coming up with our very first special guests. You all are not going to want to miss this. Isn't that right, Clarissa?
I am so excited. It's going to be a fun conversation.
Oh, yes. So thank you again to the City of Fredericksburg for working with us to preserve the lamp, and of course, Mr. Freeman Funk for the donation of the lamplighter step. And I hope you all take the time to look around at what really remains, and we'll catch you next time.